Eyes wide open, dreams on hold, insomnia's grip. Endless and bold, the night unfolds.
All right, thanks for listening while we took that short break here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And now we're going to get back to your host.
Well, hello, everyone. Happy Monday. Anyway, it's a rather windy day out today, but nice earlier today, so got out for a great walk and did some cardio, so I'm feeling great. Anyway, I'm, of course, your host, the red-pilled philosopher. This is the Eyes Wide Open show, where we keep our eyes open to all different issues in the world today and yesterday. So, tonight we're going to, again, dive into the markets, the exciting world of markets and trade. One of the reasons is because a lot of people are kind of going apeshit about these stupid tariffs. And I don't claim to know anything about the tariffs or about the markets for that matter. So, without further ado, I'm going to bring in a very knowledgeable person about markets and trade and the stocks and how it all works. His name is Dan Lynch. And just a quick housekeeping note. Please spare some shekels to this wonderful network that we call home to truth and freedom of speech, Revolution Radio. You can donate freedomslips.com. And without further ado, I'm going to bring Dan Lynch into the conversation. Hello, Dan. Hopefully he will answer. There it is. Hi.
Hello.
Oh, I love technology. Anyway, how's it going tonight? How are you?
I'm doing very well. Today was a good day. I got outside a bit, walked around with the dogs. It was nice.
Yeah, it was really nice. I got outside too today, which is great. I love being outdoors. Hopefully we don't get any weird weather. I heard that we're supposed to get a snowstorm or something. I don't think that's going to happen. Anyway, so what's going on in the world of markets lately? The stock world.
Well, we got Trump playing hardball with the rest of the world. It's him versus everybody. That's basically how I'm looking at it. And, before you asked me if the difference between the markets and the economy, and that's exactly right. There is a separation there of the economy and the markets in a large sense in what's going on. It's kind of like climate change versus weather patterns, and we got a president that's in there now that's willing to do the things, or has the balls to stir the pot, to say.
I definitely think he has balls. That's for sure. I mean, whether people agree with what he's doing or not, he definitely has balls.
I think a lot of people want this to happen. They want to change the way that things are in the United States, and there's a certain sector that's just they're kind of getting the short end of the stick, and Trump, saw himself fit to, go for their votes, and they voted for him, and now he's in, and there's certainly a lot of people that are not happy about it. I mean, some people are just not happy about anything, right? So you had people not too long ago complaining about the price of eggs, which, Trump just got in office. The price of eggs went through the roof, but completely deleted the fact that they culled, like thousands of chickens, just prior to him getting in office. So of course eggs are going to be through the roof because of, what I consider another fake PCR pandemic just against chickens. So
Against chickens this time.
against
Yeah.
chickens. So complaining about that, and then that goes away. Now they're complaining that he's crashing the economy. Well, so which is it? You're upset about inflation, or you're upset about, him crashing the economy? And now they're complaining about both, that he's going to crash the economy and create inflation, which is just like.
Well, I mean, this is why I do the show that I do, because people don't. I mean, they complain, but they don't even know what they're complaining about.
Precisely. I even have a friend who's quite educated in the economy, and he's been a trader for years, and he's just saying ridiculous stuff that's just like, I mean, how do you come to these conclusions? And he was the one talking about the eggs. He was complaining about the inflation on eggs with Trump, and I'm like, the guy has only been in there for 5 seconds. Like, did you forget about the shortage of eggs just prior to that?
So, do you think that these tariffs are just an excuse to create hyperinflation?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. In fact, I would say the exact opposite. That Trump wants to clear the slate. I'm sure of that. And countries around the world are already capitulating. They're already falling in line, and they're looking to make deals and improve the situation for Trump and the Americans. I think one of the main things he wants to do is bring jobs. He definitely wants to bring jobs. He wants to look good. He wants the country to sort of have a better trading position, which they probably deserve, given that they're the largest market in the world. And like Doug Ford, our premier in Ontario here, he came out hard and heavy, and he was going to deal with Trump, and he was going to fight him, and we better vote for him, and because he's going to be the one to deal with Trump and all this. And the minute he got elected, and once he figured things out, he basically bent over and he's capitulating already. And it's just embarrassing, really, because he's just so full of shit, that guy.
So, do you think then that hyperinflation was going to happen whether Trump, put in tariffs or not? Or, regardless?
We were experiencing inflation. It was going up again. So this is under Biden. And just prior to Christmas, Chairman Powell came out, and he basically took off more cuts to the interest rates. So when that happened, the markets started going crazy because the numbers for inflation were already going up. So this happened before Trump, easily. We were knocking them down through rate cuts, through rate hikes, and then they tried to do some rate cuts because they thought, okay, but then it started going back up. And the numbers now are showing that they're dialing it back again. So I think the numbers are going down, and they would have been way worse had not Trump not created this instability. So these tariffs and this tariff talk and the instability in the markets and stuff has actually reduced inflation like massively. And at the same time, because they were complaining about them losing jobs, well, that's not true either, because if we look at the numbers, and I can show you the data if you really want, but the numbers, they projected a certain amount of jobs I'd have to go back a week for March, and they were over by about 100,000. So yeah, so they're not killing jobs either, or the tariffs aren't killing jobs. You know what I mean? Like Trump's not killing jobs. Let's just put it that way. So it was just the media is just, I don't know. It's just, I don't want to say it's leftism or whatever, just specifically, but it's just a lot of like, I think the media is just trying to wind people up because they want people paying attention to what's going on and watching their shows so that they can, because they're not news agencies. And I don't know why we call them news agency, or, we call them legacy media and stuff like that, but they're not giving us news. They're giving us half truths, and they're tailoring their content to specific groups of people. So it's just entertainment. That's all that is entertainment. So, like, yeah, here it is, the non-farm employment change. What was forecast was 137,000 jobs, and what came out was 228,000. And this is it came out on April 4th, and this is going back to, that's the numbers for March. So that's not it's not congruent with what they're trying to push.
Yeah, so jobs are actually increasing.
Yeah,
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's massive.
Wow. Because I mean the fake news is saying, there's another plant that's going to be closing, an auto plant, and there's going to be more layoffs, and in Ontario and in Canada, all this nonsense that they are saying, and of course a lot of people are believing it. So,
well, to be certain here, I'm talking about the United States, right? So their numbers are going up.
right.
It's going in on. So yeah, we could lose, because of the switchover. They're trying to draw back manufacturing to like Detroit from Windsor, for example. I mean, like if you look at how Detroit was decimated and how Windsor kind of grew up, and even maybe even Oakville and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Ontario could get hurt, and this is what I was trying to tell. Like on Twitter, I'm trying to communicate with Doug Ford. Of course, why would he pay attention to me? But at the same time, I was right about everything. He threatened to cut off their electricity, and I'm saying all he's going to do is declare an emergency, and he's going to get what he wants. You're so like, how are you so stupid? And why are you playing? Why don't you just go to zero? Go to zero, right? If this is what this is about, play his game. Go to zero. See what happens. And then what will Trump have? He'll have nothing if he did that. I mean, if I was to argue from a Canadian perspective, you know what I mean? But look at what they're doing now. They're talking about, we're going to have increased interprovincial trading, and we're gonna build the pipelines, and Messiah's gonna part the Red Sea. I'm like, why didn't you do this in the freaking 70s or the 60s? Like, this could have always been the way. And I don't know what they were waiting for. Like, why set themselves up in a position where we're so dependent on the Americans that we didn't build up our own infrastructure?
Well, would it not be because of now, correct me if I'm wrong, would it be because it's a debt-based economy? Does it have anything to do with that? Like I say, I have no idea. So I'm you're the go-to person for this stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely a debt-based economy, but the thing is it's just so much easier to funnel all our stuff down to the United States because they're the largest market in the world. So, like, even if we did build up all our infrastructure and everything else like that and start trading with other nations and stuff, it just wouldn't compare in any way. But I don't think that's not a reason to do that. We should have pipelines all across Canada. We should have all our ducks in a row, just and for a reason like interprovincial trading, like they were saying, it's easier to trade with Belgium than it is to trade with Manitoba, which is right next door. Like this is nuts. Like so Canada is all about unity, and yet we can't even we're not even trading properly. I knew this decades ago. I'm just saying. It's just.
Do you think it's because all along there's been a plan, shall we say, to create the North American Union, meaning becoming part of the United States?
Oh, I'm sure people have considered it all along, one way or another, and in different forms and in different, administrations. So yeah, it was talked about before. People were, it's not the first time people have said, used the term the 51st state. I remember back in the 80s that people were, protesting and saying, yeah, Canada's becoming the 51st state. This is not the first time this has been brought up. And, I beg the question, what is the upside and what's the downside side? And why aren't we discussing it? Because there certainly is a lot of benefits, I would say. But there are some, downside but we still need to talk about it because England is basically collapsing as far as I can tell from over here, the way it's looking,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely. It really is. Sad to see, but it is collapsing, yeah. So would you say that before all this happened, the United States market was collapsing?
Yeah, I would say that things are going in a bad way, like depending on which sector you were in. So you certainly have like those who believe in manufacturing and higher paying jobs, that sector is terrible. But all the paper pushers, were doing quite well. I mean, they're happy enough. Like someone that works for a university, is happy enough to, get his products from China at a cheap rate because he doesn't have to pay anything above or pay anyone else's wages here or anything like that. And he doesn't suffer from it because he's not employed in that sector. He's, he's teaching as a professor or whatever. And, he's 100% insulated from that whole thing.
Hmm.
It's definitely could be by design. I mean, it's just like, a lot of these people are creating the society we're living in, so they make us jump through their hoops, like the teachers union is very powerful, everywhere, so they want everyone to get, a high school diploma, and then they want them to go to college and stuff. So this is why they don't want people getting married very young anymore, and they just want them, chasing these degrees or whatever for whatever reason. And it's unfortunately, I think they're just valueless. There's just not a lot of value in these things anymore. And a lot of the stuff you can get from the library if you really want to learn it, but it's not, it's just not helping us. That's totally my opinion, but
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah. So would you say what are the pros of becoming a part of the United States then?
well, certainly travel and engagement in a larger market. Even though we're very connected in the market, but now you could buy property in Florida or California or Texas, which is just wonderful. You may change around your tax structure, and some people may lose their health care depending on how it comes down. But let's just say, for argument's sake, that each one of us becomes our own state. Like Ontario becomes a state, BC becomes its own state. Well, there's a lot of power within the state to design its own world, right? So if you're pro-choice, for example, like British Columbia, I mean, they could have that. And if they want, a more controlled health care system, you can pay into that system through the state. You may not get as much federal dollars, but you could still have it. I just think that the whole market system and the job opportunities would explode for Canadians, and the options that we'd have in regards to that. It's just even just buying products. The cost of living should shrink massively. We could get more construction and more, development, faster development, and people would, like, the average person would have more opportunities to push themselves as a product or as a, an idea or something, like for instance, your channel, right? So you're developing your channel and you want to engage with people. Well, once you have that network, you have that whole market, it's so much easier to fly to Florida or California or, let's say Las Vegas or something for conventions to promote your channel and your ideas and stuff like that. And you'll be able to engage with people in that country a lot better, and they'll have more respect for you there, or because you're one of them, you're more welcome to what's going on. I just find, like, outside that realm, they don't get the same kind of numbers. So most of the people I'm finding that are trying to break in to that market end up moving there, so that because they know that being based there gives them a lot more opportunities. So.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that. Doing, promotions and stuff previously and still, wanting to do stuff like that, it would be an excellent exchange and opportunity. I think it would actually bring Canadians more than it would bring us less.
Yeah.
What are the cons to becoming, quote, 51st state, quote?
Well, yeah, like I was saying, I mean, like, some of the things that we may love, it's like our healthcare, but not necessarily, and some of our identity will kind of merge into that and sort of be, it won't be Canadian history taught as much as American history, and so some of these cultural avenues, people may not want to be in the tug of war between Democrats and Republicans. I mean, we do have a multi-party system, like, for what it is, for what it's worth, we wouldn't have a monarchy anymore, and we wouldn't be connected to England. And some people may pride that. I don't know. And then we still have a lot of land disputes. So Quebec just isn't Quebec. Like, some of the great reasons that Quebec couldn't separate is because a lot of that is just native territory. And, like, what are they going to do? You can't just, go out on their own like they thought they could. It's not as easy as they think it is, because the natives are going to lose their shit. You know what I mean? And the land disputes will be endless. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Those are just a couple of the factors that I'm not saying that it couldn't all be worked out, and maybe there are things that I'm not considering, but that's off the top of my head. That's what comes to mind.
Well, with the upcoming fraud election that we're enduring or trying to, what do you see for the Canadian market in the near future once this fiasco is over?
Well, I think like Carney was one of the one of the great pushers of the Green New Deal sort of thing and the carbon tax and stuff. So like it takes an act of parliament to get rid of that whole thing. So he may have turned it down to zero for now, but I don't trust him to keep it at zero. That's for sure. And that will squeeze our market even more so down. You know, we'll have to see, because to me this guy just comes out of nowhere. And as far as I can tell, he was, you know, mentoring Trudeau the whole last, you know, decade or so. So like a lot of the stuff that we're getting from Trudeau was coming from him. So I don't think he's our savior like they claim he is. So
No. I mean, Trudeau wasn't intelligent enough to really pull a lot of the stuff off that has been done. I think that Mark Carney, personally, like my opinion of him is that he's more intelligent than Trudeau. And do you think he's more dangerous than Trudeau because of his intelligence and his connections?
well, I mean, I don't think he has the staying power that Trudeau has. Trudeau was sort of a legacy, and he was this great ball of nostalgia that took us back to an era where people, a lot of the strong voting bloc that are still alive, really, you know, admired and was very, you know, in the public. You know, that's when Canada kind of mattered a bit, even on the world stage. And certainly Trudeau is not that guy, but he wasn't his father, that's for sure, intelligence-wise. But he, you know, he was able to act and deliver lines, and he had a good appearance. So women would vote for him. You know, he could get their vote a lot easier, you know, without critical thinking, just because of his looks, you know. And of course he had the, you know, the pro-choice, you know, bag, but I mean, he went radical. He went too far to the crazy side, you know. So, I mean, I think that's what cost him. He went after the kids, and he, as far as I'm concerned, he could have been prime minister another 20 years if he didn't, you know, push this trans nonsense and just kind of kept an even keel with the economy and been a little bit more, you know, open about it, instead of a lot of these, like, you know, these weird taxes and these shell games that they're playing with our economy, because, you know, eventually it was catching up to him, and he obviously couldn't answer a question straight.
Do you think that with the way that the Canadian economy itself is going, they're going to introduce some drastic communist kind of measures?
Well, I think that's what a lot of that CO2, you know, battle was. I mean, CO2 is basically you're controlling the production of everything. You have the means, you know, it's like indirectly doing so. Instead of owning, you know, a particular car plant or a refinery or something like that, they're putting a levy, and they're putting like regulation using CO2 and emissions. And this is, you know, this is how Mussolini did it. And actually, it's very similar to what the Nazis did. And they're socialists, collectivists, and it's kind of brilliant. I've been saying it for years that whoever came up with this idea, you know, was a genius, because they were able to capture the entire world, the entire market, the entirety of all production. So if you're Karl Marx and you want to control the means of production, you know, you're basically getting, you know, you're getting all of it through these CO2 caps. You know.
Well, I I will say that with the Karl Marx method, it a lot of it is taxation and central banking. Would you agree with that, or
Yeah, that's
disagree?
it's part of the 10 planks. So they want a progressive tax, and they want a central bank. So you're right on the money there. You know, that's 2 of 10 right there.
And what about the universal basic income? Do you think that our economy is going to become so bad that they're going to suddenly introduce measures like the universal income? Or do you think that's just a kind of a fear-mongering myth?
Well, they did this before, so I can't say that it's true or not because it's just speculation. But to give you an example, that's what Marx said with the Industrial Revolution, that it was going to put everybody out of work, and everybody was going to be unemployed and sitting around because an industry would take over. But the fact of the matter is, it created more jobs. So this is a big question now with AI, because AI is not just going after laborers; it's actually going after the intellectuals. So I can go on to many of these AI websites and ask questions ranging all kinds of things from legal matters to health matters and other specialized areas that are, in a lot of ways, were just kept secret from us. Because, I mean, the average person doesn't know squat about the law. I mean, let's face it. You could talk to them, and they don't really understand it. They don't understand the arguments. But now they can kind of go on and use AI to educate them. Once they learn how to use AI properly, you could probably give yourself the equivalent of a Bachelor of Arts in law and a Bachelor of Arts in medicine, if you wanted to.
So, the difference, though, between the Industrial Revolution and what is going on today, would you say the difference between today and that time period is people today have gotten used to the communist way of living versus when the Industrial Revolution happened, people still were hardy enough and savvy enough to be able to create work and um, different aspects of life despite what was going on.
Well, I'm going to put my public relations hat on here for a second, and I'm going to suggest to you that a lot of the communist sort of message that we're getting is actually just commercialism. So people watch a lot of television and stuff like that. They're being fed these messages because a lot of them are feel good, and it's the easy way. It's like instead of doing proper dieting and exercise, here's a pill. You know what I mean? And it's the same for uh, finances, right? So you want a universal basic income, right? So this, I mean, you got to look at who benefits from these things, and a lot of them are, multi-billionaires probably.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And watching a television show, you get that feel good moment where everybody, they saved the farm, and it was a team effort, and it was sort of like this co-op community to save whatever thing it was, and it's just gets inside your head. You think, okay, that's so you got kids growing up, they're getting it in school, and they're also getting it from just from watching television, because that's the message of the masses. It's really just a numbers game. So I'm not saying that's the entirety of it, but a lot of it is just a strategy, an advertising strategy, and you have to discern the difference, right?
Yeah. Well, as far as the market goes, I mean, um, how can we educate people on what is really going on, what the tariffs mean, and how it works, and how the media is basically, creating a lot of, a lot of fake news.
Well, it's very difficult to do that, but the best
Yeah.
thing to do is to stick to your guns and stick to the facts and stick to the numbers game, right? So, you know, um, this isn't this. I would say that it's not even new because they've done this back in Vietnam. I think it was Vietnam. So they called it the conscientious objector,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And I think only 10% of the people that were conscientious objectors had actually thought it through. You know what I mean? And the rest were there, just because there was a social event, right?
Yeah.
They were going to get high and hang out with their friends and wave signs around.
Yeah.
You see this with Tesla, and a lot of the people are there, like, over the last weekend they were protesting Trump and they're protesting Doge and whatever. And they have, these guys are jokers, obviously, and they're just going up to random people on the street. And most of the people that are there have no clue why they're there. They're just there because it's like, they assume they're getting paid or there's, the girl they like is there or the guy they like is there or whatever. And they're, just saying, doing these chants, they have to read these, keep these papers with them so they even know what the arguing points are because they're getting so complicated and convoluted that none of these people know what they're talking about. And you got to remember, like, um, when you're the counterparty or the opposition party, you need to do something to get yourself on the news and in the paper. So, it's like, oh, he's going after our Social Security, and that gets under people's skin. It gets people, worried and concerned, and and it may or may not be true, but let's just say it's not true. The opposition has to create that fear, that urgency, so that you'll be paying attention and you'll remember their face and whatever, and you got to show up because you want to make sure that your Social Security is there for you when you get there, and Elon Musk and Donald Trump aren't going to steal it for their billionaire buddies. When there's absolutely no evidence to suggest this, there's no proof whatsoever, but they repeat it enough, they say it enough, and you've terrorized, and it's, of course, it's on the news enough because they're doing these public speeches about it, that people are seeing it everywhere. And like I said, most people don't have the intelligence or even the ability to find out the truth. You can make up a slogan in a sentence or two, whereas the truth takes 3 or 4 papers or half a book to really get to the bottom of the thing. So
So, with Mark Carney, it has been said that he is definitely pro central bank, and it is very possible that he's also pro smart money or digital currency, whatever words you want to say about it. How do you think that he is going to impact the economy? Because obviously, he's going to be the next prime minister. It's just, I mean, he already is, for all intents and purposes, right? So, how do you think, if he gets elected, appointed, or whatever, how do you think he's going? Like, is he dangerous enough to do this stuff, to implement smart money into the Canadian economy?
Possibly. They kind of just ran that stuff down our throats to begin with, and um, I'm not really opposed to a digital currency myself. What I'm opposed to is making it the only option, which is what they're more and more trying to do,
Hmm.
so that they can electronically track us for one purpose or another, which I'm
Right.
very opposed. So yeah, I think he's going to follow that because, for one, he's going to introduce what you call Keynesian, methodology, uh, and that's probably what the country's going to follow. So we're not. He's going to be a spender, and he's gonna pay off his buddies and make themselves all very rich and richer than what they are, and he's going to tax us to hell because that's what's going to come. Those are the guys who create all that because they want to spend, 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 and with the digital currency, they'll be able to track it, every little penny where it goes, and um, they'll be looking to get as much of it from us as they can. So how they're going to implement that, I don't know. They create false narratives on the things that we view or in the news or whatever that scare us, and they'll just keep hyping that particular storyline or narrative that convinces us that that's the way to go. So it'll be convenience, and it'll be easier, and it'll be safer, and it'll make us richer, and whatever. So and cash is evil and dirty, and if they have cash, they're a criminal. And just like before when people had Bitcoin, that's just only criminals had Bitcoin. It's like it's all the same tools they've always had. They'll just employ them in an updated version for whatever sector that they think they can, demographic of people that they can convince. So it usually be, they might use the carrot, so to speak. So they'll make it easier for us to use it. Like I said, I'm not totally against digital currency, but what I'm against is their constant surveillance and their ability to turn it off. I mean, I will point out that so some of these exchanges that have created their own dollar have had the ability to just block anyone from using it if they felt that it went sideways. You know what I mean? So, or whatever the reason they felt it, real or imagined, they could shut it down and block you from trading those coins or those digital dollars. So it's very, very easy to do, and I could see why the government wants that. And they're certainly not going to advertise that that's their end goal.
So, what do you see in the near future for the United States market and Canada markets?
Oh, like our future together? Yeah, I think, let's give Carney the benefit of the doubt, or Polyev, or whoever comes into power the benefit of the doubt and say they want to do Canada good. We'll get through this tariff thing. This is a shakeup. It's not the end of the world. We just got to get through it. And the only problem with the tariffs now is that these tariffs, a lot of the tariffs are actually in place to protect our people from Americans selling their product here. But forget it. Let's move forward. And they will work out a deal. They'll work out a deal very soon because everybody's starting to panic. And I don't think Carney's going to play the game very long. He'll probably have a solution before he gets elected. And by the looks of it, the United States is, like I said, a lot of the people are coming across. Some of the holdouts are like China, for example, right now, and I think they'll turn around quickly. The European Union has already made the leader of the union there has already come out and made a speech. Sentiment is that they're going to work with the Americans and they're going to make up the best deal and go forward. Canada seems to have bypassed a lot of that stuff already, so they're kind of like looks like something's going to be more set in stone in the next. We'll see it very soon. I don't know if it'll be the next couple of days, but I think we're going to start seeing some solid action happening in the next short near future. So, and once that happens, I think the markets are going to explode. So, as an example, there was a false rumor went out that the market that they had figured out that there was a pause, in the tariffs for the next 90 days, and the market jumped like 8% or something within minutes. So if everybody's complaining about how the markets are down or whatever, like I said, like it jumped 8 or 10. The S&P jumped 8 or 10% in a matter of minutes just based on that rumor. So that money's there on the sideline, and they're just waiting for, some stable seas, because that's what the market really loves is, knowing what's going on rather than being in doubt and confusion, because that's where they don't know where the market's going to go. So, whatever. If the market's dumped, the market's dumped. It's not killing the economy. The economy it's going to transition and it's going to grow. And maybe it's time for a lot of these tariffs were on the books probably 20 or 30 years ago. And the real thing is nobody's even thought about them. No one, like, why would anybody in, a foreign country even think about it? And they're not even looking at the books, so it's like I said, these guys want to look tough in front of their constituents. And then they look soft when they're dealing with, the leaders. And that's what's going to happen. I don't think Doug Ford, he's an embarrassment, as far as I'm concerned. But Danielle Smith, I think she's had the right approach to the entire thing right from the beginning, and she's been doing well. And they've been calling her a traitor because she's not playing their game. But here's the thing, Trump he's gonna fight it out right to the end. And I'm watching this, and I have a business degree. I have a degree in business psychology, and what he's doing is all entirely textbook stuff. And I can see now that our leaders, our premiers and stuff, have never studied any of that. Never studied negotiation, or they've never even heard of it. They just very good at getting elected, and that's it. And it's Ford's got to go. I mean, I don't know who will replace him. It's like, I don't want liberals in there, and I don't want the NDP in there. And it's like, he's kind of like the lesser of the three evils. But at the same time, he's just, he's been lying through his teeth, and he's been doing, he's been double crossing us all along. And he just doesn't seem to, he knows how to get Canadians or Ontarioan people to vote for him. But it's like, the average person is a moron. And they're just like, oh yeah, act tough, and that's why not just go in there and see what's going on and realize what Trump is trying to do. Wayne Gretzky, go where the puck's going. None of these guys. The only one was doing it was Danielle Smith.
So, what do you think Canadians can do to improve our local markets, for example?
Yeah, well, I'm very big on that interprovincial trading. I think we need to ramp that up, and I think we need to ramp up our pipelines, just like Alberta's, trying to push for. And, choice is of the matter. I mean, we've kind of got that digital age where the dot-com bubble has already happened, and Now everyone's got a website. Now we can start, you can choose to not shop at, Amazon, or find a way to go through another market, or have people develop Amazon-like, websites, so that we could try and find more local connections. So, we can create apps and other resources, to figure this out. And it'd be quite easy to do. The thing about businesses, and they become monopolies eventually, like, most of our soda is bottled by the same people. So that would be difficult to create like a local establishment, and especially when they can do it cheaper, rather than some people who's like got a cottage industry of making soda, and they make great soda, but and they're more local. It becomes like a weekend thing. It's a once in a while we'd try, but usually we go for the economic reasons. But we'll have to push ourselves out there and try and explore it. And if it works, we can raise our awareness among each other through word of mouth. And the one thing I learned in advertising, which was kind of hilarious, because they never taught it, but the people that did teach it were, word of mouth advertising is the best form of advertising that exists.
It is,
but
yeah.
They didn't tell anyone how to do it. They gave us all the basic methods that were out there, print and radio and television and stuff, but they didn't give us the how to do word of mouth advertising.
Right. So creating, local websites that support local products and businesses, is that going to be the way that we should try to aspire to?
This is something they've talked about for years, and I think Trump is kind of on a national level doing that. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think on a national level we should be doing that more and more.
Right.
And
I agree.
The sentiment should be, let's all trade with each other. And you don't see it as much in Canada. And if you've traveled the States, then you'll know this. But you'll see in the States how the markets are a lot wider open than they are here. And that mentality is more explicit than it is here. A lot of people don't think they can dream as big as they can. You get someone like Elon Musk, and he's like, well, I can, I want to get to work faster. So then he develops a company that drills under the ground. You know what I mean? We need people to start thinking bigger and bigger all the time. And it's like what Les Borey says, right? About the money. If we support local, it will help our economy in the long run, right? So, and plus maybe even creating some alternative currencies as well. Would you agree that would help Canada as well? Well, it's difficult to speculate on that, but alternative currencies is not a new thing. It was around before, and it could be around.
Right. Well, our music is on, Dan. I definitely really appreciate you coming on again, because like I say, I don't know anything about this stuff. You are my market expert. I just want to say a big thank you to everyone at Revolution Radio and to my guests. Thank you so much, Dan. Have a great night.
Listen to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Have a good night, everyone.
Eyes wide